Dear students, welcome back to Biology Classroom. We are discussing our second chapter, Food through Digestive Tract, and we have discussed many stages of absorption. Today we are going to discuss the last stage of absorption, that is from the small intestine, and how this digested food get absorbed in our body. So in the last video we discussed up to the pancreatic juice and how the enzymes in the pancreatic juice convert starch, protein and fat into its simplest form. So after that, when it gets mixed with the pancreatic juice, it moves on to the duodenum, which is the initial part of the small intestine. From the small intestine, the inner walls of the small intestine contain some glands, and this glands secrete the intestinal juice. This intestinal juice contains some enzyme. That is, it contains different kinds of enzyme. One among this enzyme convert the sugar in the digested food to its simplest form, that is glucose, fructose and galactose. That is, one among the enzymes in small intestine convert the sugar into its simplest form, that is glucose, fructose and galactose. Here the name of the enzyme is not mentioned, so you need not want to study the name. Another enzyme helps to convert peptides into amino acid, which is the simplest form of the protein. So these are the digestion which takes place in the small intestine. I told you in the previous video that the digestion process ends from the small intestine and the process of absorption also starts from the small intestine. So digestion is a stage by stage process, and from each part of the digestive tract the food we eat get digested into the simplest form. So finally when it reaches the small intestine, all the nutrients we have taken through the food get converted into its simplest form. So they are ready for the absorption. So here from this table you can find out that which are the simplest form of carbohydrate, proteins and fat. The simplest form of carbohydrate is glucose, fructose and galactose. Then protein is amino acid and fat is fatty acid and glycerol. The digestion process of fat get completed from the duodenum itself, that is by the bile juice which is secreted by the liver. So further digestion does not take place from the small intestine. From the small intestine, the final digestion of glucose or carbohydrate and protein takes place. Next we are going to study about the absorption, how this digested nutrients get absorbed by our body. I told you the absorption of simple nutrients begins in the small intestine. So in inner walls of the small intestine we have finger-like projection which is known as the villus. Villus are small finger-like projections seen in inner walls of the intestine. This increases the surface area of absorption of nutrients to a great extent within the small intestine. Villus are covered with a single layer of cell. They also contain blood capillaries and lacteals, the lymph capillaries. Water-soluble simple nutrients are absorbed into the blood. From the diagram itself, you have a clear picture about the villus. They are finger-like projection. This kind of numerous finger-like projections are seen in the inner walls of our small intestine. What is the use of this finger-like projection? This finger-like projection helps to increase the surface of absorption of nutrients. So this projection helps the small intestine to absorb more amount of nutrients when it passes through the small intestine. So it increases the surface area of absorption. This villus is covered by a single layer of cell. So what is the benefit of having a single layer of cell? Because this arrangement help the villus to easily get absorb all the nutrients from the digested food. So suppose if they are having 2 or 3 layers of covering, the absorption will be much more difficult. So if it is having single layer of cell or single layer of covering, it will be easy for the villus to absorb all the nutrients from the digested food. This villus contain blood capillaries, lacteals and lymph capillaries. Water soluble nutrients are absorbed into the blood. So water soluble and water insoluble nutrients are the, especially the simplest form of the fat, they are water insoluble nutrients. They are not get absorbed into the blood. I told you this later. But all the other nutrients, that is the simplest form of carbohydrate and simplest form of proteins, are water soluble. So this nutrient, simplest form of this carbohydrate and protein, are absorbed directly into the blood. Now you will be having a doubt that what do you mean by lacteals and lymphatic capillaries or lymph capillaries. Lymph capillaries and lacteals are part of lymphatic system. You have heard about the circulatory system which circulates blood throughout our body. And like the same way, there is another circulatory system which is known as the lymphatic system, which contains colorless fluid, which usually helps in our defense mechanism, that is to prevent diseases in our body. It contains some colorless fluid which is circulating in our body like the blood. Absorption of nutrients, and 90% of water absorption takes place through this finger like projection, that is villi. Let us check out how this absorption takes place. Absorption of simple nutrients from the small intestine takes place along and against the concentration gradient. That is, concentration gradient means that is from high concentrated area to low concentrated area and low concentrated area to high concentrated area. Simple diffusion, facilitated diffusion and osmosis are movement of molecules from a region of higher concentration to a region of lower concentration. That is, molecules moving from high concentrated area to low concentrated area takes place in simple diffusion, facilitated diffusion and in osmosis. But in the case of active transport, the movement of molecule takes place from low concentrated area to high concentrated area. Simple diffusion. Movement of molecules from high concentrated area to low concentrated area is called simple diffusion. In absorption of nutrients, the absorption of fatty acids and glycerol to lacteals takes place by simple diffusion. Simple diffusion takes place across a semi-permeable membrane, and it can also be takes place without a semi-permeable membrane, like the spreading of smell in air and spreading of ink in water are also simple diffusion. Suppose you are taking some water in a glass and adding 2 or 3 drops of ink, you can see the spreading of ink in water. So this is also diffusion. In some cases, the diffusion of some molecules takes place with the help of protein molecule present in the cell membrane. This is called facilitated diffusion. So in simple diffusion, it does not happens with the help of any molecule, but in some cases the diffusion of molecules takes place with the help of protein molecule present in the cell membrane. This is called facilitated diffusion. Absorption of glucose, fructose and galactose and some amino acid into the blood capillaries takes place through facilitated diffusion. Here from this picture you can distinguish between simple diffusion and facilitated diffusion. Simple diffusion, which happens without the help of a protein molecule, that is movement of molecule from high concentrated area to low concentrated area. Facilitated diffusion occurs with the help of a protein molecule in the cell membrane, and the absorption of glucose, fructose, galactose and amino acid in our body takes place through diffusion. Osmosis is the movement of water molecule from high concentrated area to low concentrated area through a semi-permeable membrane. It also occurs across the concentration gradient. This process is only applicable for water molecule. Next is active transport. In some instances, absorption takes place against the concentration gradient that I told you earlier. Molecules are absorbed from a region of lower concentration to a region of higher concentration by utilizing energy and with the help of a carrier protein. This process is called active transport. So all the process we have discussed earlier does not require energy. That is for diffusion, simple diffusion, facilitated diffusion, osmosis. This all things does not require energy. But for active transport, energy is utilized because it occurs from a region of lower concentration to a region of higher concentration. But you have noticed all the other absorption mechanism occurs from high concentrated area to low concentrated area. This has happened when the concentration of glucose, salt, etc. decreases in the small intestine. So when the glucose and salt get decreased in the small intestine, it is by the process of active transport that they are get absorbed into the blood. Thus, based on the requirement of the cell, maximum glucose and salt enters blood without any loss. This is up to today's class. Hope you all understood. This is the toughest portion of this chapter. Make sure that you understood this part very well. More questions will be asking for the examination. Take care. Thank you. Have a nice day.